Well, this is a bit of a treat. For the first time ever in the world, we have all 4 of the world record edition Bugattis. So I thought we'd look round them, see some of the nerdy details, but rather than me trying to remember them all, I'm going to get someone who's a much bigger expert, Mr. Frank Heyl, Design Director of Bugatti. Frank, thank you very much for your time. I just want to jump straight into this because you were saying earlier, your first project when you joined Bugatti in 2008 was?
The Supersport, yes.
What a first project to get stuck into. So what people don't maybe appreciate about this car is that this is very, very different on top and underneath from the standard Veyron, isn't it?
Yes, so this is 2008 we started with this project. It was clear from the start to make it go the 430 something kilometers, it needed to have 1200 horsepower. So we started with bigger intercoolers, bigger turbos and a more slippery body.
Yes, you've got to fit all that into a less draggy body.
Yes, so drag is one thing. So we took away the ram induction air intakes that the Veyron had, the metal scoops.
Yes, you've got these NACA ducts on the top here.
Yes, and we replaced them with these NACA ducts because they could be sunken into the silhouette of the car. And the way that they work is these 2 shapes, they actually create a suction of air, like a spiraling air into the intake without adding any drag. And so that would be sufficient for supplying the engine for 1200 horsepower with sufficient air.
Yeah.
And so that was number one. We also even worked on the visibility out the A-pillars. So the A-pillars are slimmed down, so you have better visibility actually. And obviously it has a new front end.
Yeah, I always wonder what this sort of extra vent going around the chin is for.
Yes, so we're
pushing
pushing more air through the radiators. We have additional brake cooling intakes here, and we have an air management around the side of the car, which was improved because we have this little spoiler lip here. You see it's a vertical spoiler shooting air off and creating an under pressure, a low pressure here, drawing the air, part of the air out of the radiators on the side.
So it's, I know underneath there's obviously the different engine cooling, different suspension, but I mean, how many panels does this actually share with a standard Veyron?
Probably the doors and the rear 3/4 side panel and the front bonnet.
Wow, so not a lot left over. So that's project number 1.
We also added a double diffuser.
Of course.
Yeah. Also, this is another drag reduction kind of thing.
Yeah.
We had a radiator integrated into the underside of the double diffuser. So there's an additional radiator underneath, and we integrated the 4 exhausts like in 2 elements like this. So
I always love as well how on these, you've got this shrink-wrapped rear to it where the engine's still exposed, but it's kind of in this cozy little hole, this porthole that it looks out of because of the way you shrink wrap that down to give you less drag.
It's what I still love about the Veyron, and this is so timeless, is the beauty of these surfaces. No, there's no line to them. It's all just sculpture and reflection and muscle, just big wheel arches and nice reflections, and that's what's giving it the stance from the rear view, and it looks ultra wide.
Yeah.
Even though it's actually less wide than the Chiron, but it looks ultra wide because it's the relation of proportions, no? The size of one thing in relation to another.
Yeah.
And so you get that relatively slim central section of the body, and then these ultra, almost vulgar kind of wheel arches.
No, but it's what gives it like stance and attitude rather than just having styling lines.
Yes.
So can we just move on to the Vitesse? Because what I find interesting here is, the customer demands a convertible, or Bugatti decides to build a roadster, but that involves some compromises, doesn't it? Like you have to have the ram intakes back because you have no roof to build NACA ducts.
There's no surface to mount a NACA duct to, so back are the ram induction intakes. However, what's really interesting is if you have the 1200 horsepower engine with the uprated turbochargers, you sit in the driver's seat, you see how far away this is. It's just basically right behind your ear, and you can perceive all the noises that the intakes make, and also the blow-off valves of the turbo. So if you throttle on, you hear the low-down rumble of that 8-liter W16, right? And you throttle off, you hear the turbo right behind your ears.
Yeah,
and the acoustic sensation you get from this was also the inspiration then later on for the Mistral.
Now, the thing that literally sticks out to me on this is this tongue on top of the windscreen.
Yes.
And the whole car is very streamlined, and then this is sticking straight up.
Yes.
What on earth is that for?
Yeah, so we were in the wind tunnel, and there was one thing that really bothered us, which was the buffeting. So you would go 50, 60 kilometers an hour and it would be whoop, 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 whoop. And it was so annoying. And we were, I remember sitting in the car in the wind tunnel. The wind tunnel was on. We were like, okay, what can we do? And our aerodynamicist back then, I will never forget. He had this trick. I don't know how he knew about it. He just put his hand, and this is the top edge of the windscreen. He just put his hand there, just like this. It was gone.
Just gave it a high five.
Just like this.
And
it was
that
gone.
killed the drumming.
And we're like, oh, okay, let's do that. Let's put that on. And so we had this little roof. We call it roof spoiler, which comes in 3 parts. You can fold it up and take it with you. And that's how this little gurney was born back then. And
of course, it's a gurney.
It makes
Not
it
a
really
tug.
comfortable, actually, together with the wind shot as well. To sit
That's
in there.
amazing that such a small piece can have such a big difference.
Yes.
And then do you have to add any strengthening with the chassis of the car, or is it because
Oh
it's
yeah,
carbon?
yes.
you don't
So
have to?
so torsional rigidity is a thing on open top cars. You have no load path over the A pillar and into the B pillar, so you do need to strengthen the tunnel and also the sills to establish the torsional rigidity, because torsional rigidity is very important if you have all the chassis set up. If you have a dampener and a spring and suspension working towards a stiff chassis, then you get the precision right. If the chassis is flexing, then it's unprecise, and then you feel that. So here we managed to establish the torsional rigidity even on an open top car.
This is what I knew would get talking to Frank. If you follow Frank on Instagram, you get the nerd details. No shame in being a nerd in there when you're doing cars like this. There's another nerd detail around the back that I want to look at. So because we have this unique opportunity to compare world record cars, the angle of attack on this rear wing is actually steeper than that one.
Yeah,
is that right?
and it's only in as you said, when you have the 2 cars next to each other.
Yeah.
It's because there's slightly more turbulent air over the roof if you have no roof on it, or over the top of the car, than on the Naka duct sleek roof. We could get away with a slightly more shallow angle of attack on the wing, the pitch angle on the wing,
Right.
than on the convertible. So if you see the cars from side view in direct comparison, you'll notice there's a couple of degrees more pitch angle to this wing.
Oh, right. And then does that mean you have to recalibrate the way the air brake works?
Everything,
or anything?
everything, yeah. The air brake is 55 degrees. It comes up in 0.2 seconds. It's hydraulic. It's really fast. Fast response rate, right? If you are in top speed mode, you lift your foot off the throttle, it comes up to give you the stability. And also, people always say this is what is an air brake? And an air brake is mainly an aero balance device, not an actual brake.
Yeah.
Yes, if this comes up 55 degrees, yes, this will slow you down, but not worth mentioning. But what it will do, if you brake, you load transfer weight onto the front wheels. If the rear comes up, the wing comes up, it transfers load back onto the rear wheels, and then also the rear wheels can fully lock up, and that's how you decelerate even more if you have an air brake. If you don't have the air brake and you lock up in the same way, the car would get unstable. So the air brake is really a stabilization device.
Yeah, it's very clever. That's why I've heard Andy Wallace of great testing fame say that he always notices when he drives the Chiron, is it Pure Sports, which has the fixed wing?
Fixed wing.
Yeah, he really notices that you don't have the air brake flicking.
And about the airfoil design also, there's big differences. So, which maybe is a good lead over to the Super Sport 300 Plus.
So this is so crazy that we can just go from the fastest car in the world to the previous fastest convertible to the current speed record holder, a world record edition Chiron Super Sport. What were the details that you wanted to point out?
So here we have about 10 inches longer rear. And also the actual airfoil of the wing is slightly longer. As you can see, the Chiron wing would stop here. So it's just 25 mil longer, which doesn't seem like much. But when this comes up, you can also, again, ask Andy about, at the end of the straight, you hit the brakes and this comes up. If it's just a little bit more surface, it reaches out a little bit higher into the air, you can immediately feel. So this has a big effect actually on it. But what's mainly the story with the longtail, and I've been wanting to do longtail ever since Veyron times actually, is it reduces the tear of area. So when we speak about drag, we speak about laminar airflow over the rear car, and at a certain defined edge, it tears off, and what happens is it's drum rolling back onto the car, attaching to the car and dragging it back. That's why we speak about drag. So the smaller you can make this tear off area, the less drag you will have. So if you compare that, that's nearly 40% a smaller tear off area than
40%?
Than a Chiron even.
Wow.
And that's why also it really helped to draw up the diffuser and to reposition the exhaust pipes. So as you know, on Chiron we had the exhaust pipes in the center. So for this, this is going nearly 500 kilometers an hour. It was important to get the diffuser as efficient as we could. So we relocated from that very effective part in the center, we relocated the exhaust pipes out to the sides, and we stacked them up on top of each other so that they wouldn't sit next to each other and eat away functional surface from the diffuser. So we put them upright, and that's how they became more narrow, right?
Yeah.
Still same cross section, and it really helps to keep the wing in top speed mode. And this is a principle that we later on we learned on this car, and we transferred it even to tourbillon now. So
I see. Yes,
and
you're
this is
always evolving. The
next
same
step,
theme.
next step. And so this is all of the fundamental learnings in the 300 plus went into the tourbillon now with how important the underfloor is. If you talk to a designer and he'll say, oh, if I see a new car, I want to see the underfloor first, which seems like a counterintuitive thing.
Yeah.
Why? Because the underfloor is the enabler to what's happening on the top, which is what you see.
I understand.
So the long tail was a key thing for this car.
Now, just as we take a walk down here, I'll let you do your thing, but I just wanted to ask about these, because these holes here, they're a nod, obviously, to the EB110 Super Sport.
We love that, yeah.
But I always wondered, are they there mainly to do that kind of stylistic nod to the past, or how much of an aero or cooling effect are they having?
We never do anything just for because we can.
You promise they're there for a reason.
There's always a function there.
Yep.
So if at that speed you're pushing air through the radiators and that air is getting vented into the wheel wells, that air needs to go somewhere. Part of it will come out of the wheels. That's why also the wheels we designed in a very open manner. They're not very blocked, right?
Yeah.
Part of it is going out in the sill area. Part of it is going out here, and part of it is going out there. So if we didn't do that, the air would get trapped in the wheel wells and would build up pressure and push the car up in the front.
Right.
And create lift. Now, we can't afford lift. And we can't also afford to have too much downforce, so these need to be just in balance. So at top speed, this car is aerodynamically neutral. Neither lift nor downforce. And that's really difficult to do.
That's a clever balance to do, isn't it? So just to show the camera, so what Frank was pointing to here is not only taking the air out the top here, but also out of this vent. And then what's the purpose of, is this doing more of the same thing under
under there, yeah.
Yeah, and then when you come to the front of this, I mean, the Chiron is a very malevolent-looking car, but the Super Sport is downright evil. With this.
Menacing.
It's very menacing.
It
exactly
is
with this
staring.
splitter.
It's got that stare. It's looking at you. The angry eyebrow. So it's the same headlight as the Chiron, right?
Right.
But the eye sockets are quite different, and it's being counterbalanced with these two lines. Right? It gives it the stance. It's kind of planted, and then the splitter comes forward and is quite aggressive, and yet it is seamlessly guiding the air around the corner, because this is another learning here about what we call the air curtain. So you, at that speed, you have air basically hitting the front and bouncing off and creating a drag area, a low pressure area here, which again you need then more power to counterbalance. So you want to avoid that. So how do you guide air around a corner when the air just naturally wants to bounce off? Is we have basically this is a wing. It's a vertical wing. So you see the front is quite thick, and the trailing edge is like a wing on an aircraft. It's really thin. And with that, we're catching air on the front and diverting it into this low pressure area on the side to fill that pressure up and to reattach the rest of the air, so that even the air intakes on the side get pressurized a little bit more. So that's a learning.
It's so intricate, isn't it? And everything has to be linked. You can't just design one part of the car and be happy with that without thinking how it's going to affect what the air is doing a few feet that way. I mean, is your background more in design and beauty, or in being an aerodynamicist? Where does that meet?
There's no division between that. It's
Yeah?
one of the same thing, and this is also our philosophy. You know? So everything is for a reason. Everything has a purpose. That's why we say shaped by speed. That car is shaped by speed because of all these aerodynamic attributes going together with aesthetic attributes. And that's why you really have to go and understand all of these phenomena to be able to come up with something like this.
There's 300 miles an hour. Right, we'll leave the Hall of Fame here, and we'll go and have a quick look at the new one.
Yes.
Right, there's two reasons I want to go and look at the Mistral last of all. Partly because, of course, it's the latest, greatest world record edition car, but mostly because it set that record about an hour ago and it's still warm.
It's still warm,
So
and it's quite chilly out here.
Yeah,
so
it's about 6 degrees today, so while we warm ourselves up near this, Frank, take it away. What can you tell us about the design of this? Because again, it's quite a different car from, I guess, what you'd call the donor.
Yeah, so we have the Mistral, where we have the Bugatti line integrated into a kind of a visor theme that runs out into a blacked out A-pillar and then along the top edge of the screen. So this is a much smaller intake than the Chiron has. So we separated the engine processing air intake again into a ram induction air intake from the actual intake that is for the oil cooler, which sits about here. So again, you get that sensation like you used to in the Grand Sport Vitesse of the induction noise of the engine going off right behind your head, and that's we even on this car is now in the orange livery again. It's the black carbon fiber with orange. That is our record spec kind of livery at Bugatti. So it's the return of what we call the horizontal split. So we started with a Veyron, painting the car all around and also the wheels in orange. And the whole upper part is this menacing. Everything is dark. There's no aluminium polished trim. Everything's black. Kind of layout of the style. And then around the bottom we have this orange. And that came from back when we made the Veyron, we wanted to catch it on the cameras. We wanted to have exposed carbon. And so when you see that car in the distance, it looks like it is hovering on a glow of orange, right? The whole bottom is this really punchy orange. And so that also invades the interior, and we painted the intakes in the same color. And there's also these little accents like these ones here in the orange. And it has the Super Sport engine. So this is from the Chiron Super Sport 300 Plus, the 1600 horsepower, bigger upgraded turbochargers once again. And yeah, so that's the Mistral.
I mean, I just want to get into some of these details. They're fascinating. Like, for example, the door handle here, does that have an aero consideration to it? Is that helping direct air into
No,
here?
it doesn't. No,
Oh, right.
It's just on the other cars we had handles, as in the actual sense of handle.
Yeah.
Here we borrowed this idea from the Devo, actually, where it's rather you put your whole hand in it and you pull on it, you just rather put your thumb and your finger together to open the door. Like this.
And then of course the door comes all the way up here, kind of like an old Lamborghini Miura as well, the way that the door comes all the way up to the top here. And then you were saying that this is a ram air intake. So can we just explain that's literally like forcing air into the engine, isn't it? So you get more power this way?
The more velocity you pick up, the more air you force onto the airbox and respectively into the turbos. And okay, these turbos will draw the air anyways at that speed, but it's beneficial if you can force a bit more air into it, especially, and that's why we need to speak about temperature as well. Today it's 6 degrees, so 6 degrees means you have higher density of the air, which is actually a disadvantage because you're trying to push through the air.
The air is thicker as you try and get through it.
We had the driving through fruitcake, through fruitcake analogy the other day. The thicker the stuff that you're driving through is, the worse it is for the speed. However, if the air is cool, it also has more oxygen within it.
So that's good for the turbos.
That's again good for the combustion of the engine. Yeah, so it kind of balances itself out. And actually, the optimal temperature would be about 12 degrees. So now we're slightly below that, but we have no wind and no rain. So that's
you can see by the flags. There's literally no wind,
dead, no wind,
and no rain. Now let's take a look down the front, because I think it's kind of interesting now, having met and seen the Tourbillon. There's a few hints that I guess when we first saw this, we almost didn't realise we were looking at a few details from that car. So the fact you have the wider horseshoe grille.
It's the first time we introduced the wide horseshoe grille, true. Gives it the stance, and it's just the next development. And as on with our few offs, we have vertical headlights.
Like on Le Voiture Noire.
Right, and like on Devo, so this is still, we call these a few off because we only ever made 99 Mistrals. And so this has still four is our number. 16 cylinder is basically 4 rows of 4 cylinders. It's 4 turbochargers, it's 4-wheel drive, 4 is our number. So that's why 4 daytime running lights, but they are in a vertical format. These are brake cooling intakes, much inspired again by Devo actually. Devo had these kinds of intakes as well. We call those S ducts because they are shaped like an S to get the air into the inside of the wheel and cool the brakes.
Okay, so there's all these details. Now speaking of details, at the top here, you haven't got your tongue. What's going on? Where's the little lip from the Veyron gone?
Yeah, this has a slightly different aero acoustic. So you see, we actually managed to do this in a kind of a wave. So this point in the center is slightly lower, and then we have these kick-up spoilers just in front of the heads of the driver and the passenger, and that works beautifully in terms of the buffeting again.
Okay, so that's function as well. Then if we just take a walk down here, this central spar between the two ram intakes, is this for structural integrity, or is that working aerodynamically?
So we have you see there's a little rear window there.
Oh yeah.
And that's basically the framing for that. It does have a bit of an aero profile to it, but it is also mainly there. We do have an emergency roof on this car, and it needs to seal against something, right? So it's sealing against the top of the air scoops and that bridge in between the air scoops.
I see, because there was an emergency roof for the Veyron Vitesse, wasn't there? But it was almost like an umbrella that you planted in the middle of the car.
We will have an umbrella on this car again, yes.
Oh, right,
yes.
There we are. I just want to talk there's some interesting details around the back. The first thing is I would assume that with an 8-litre quad turbo W16, you would need so much cooling that everything would have to be open. But actually, some of this is actually closed off.
Yes.
So how come you can get away with that?
Yeah, because we're using the phenomena of a pressure drop. So on the side intakes, we're forcing the air through the radiators, and that is a higher pressure intake than this exit. So we have this triangular space in the negative space in between the taillights. And it's like a chimney on a fireplace, right? You draw air through that,
right?
And that's how it makes it so efficient. And nonetheless, these meshes are open in the bottom area.
Yeah, so that's open down there. Again, like at the front, another tourbillon reference, I guess, that we didn't know at the time. This sort of 3D light bar at the back.
Yeah, so this is the first time we introduced the lit-up Bugatti logo.
Yeah.
As in, those are each individual light guides into the taillight of a car. And the X theme, if you look at it it looks like an X. Right?
Yeah.
So that came from Bolide, it came from the wing support we had on the Pure Sport.
Sure.
But here it's lit up again like on it draws inspiration from the Bolide. Yeah.
Yeah, it's so menacing when you see it from the rear. Well, it's fantastic to see, as we said, for the first time ever, that all 4 world records together. This car literally set its world record today, 282 miles an hour, 453.9 kph. So congratulations, because your cars have gone faster than probably anybody else's. I'm going to ask the question. I'm sure it's like choosing between children, but do you have?
Oh, I know the question.
Or do you have do you have maybe something that you're most proud of? Is that a better way to put it?
Well, so I can't decide on that. It's as you said, no? It's like, and there's so many amazing projects that we were having the chance to work on, and this is another absolute highlight for me. In particular, on the world record car here, it's the analogy to the first world record car, which was the Veyron, which again has the horizontal split, including the wheels. I'm a total fan of the painted wheels, actually, so that works beautifully. If you can pick something, it's the horizontal split, kind of.
Horizontal split, painted wheels, lovely matching specs. For me, it's the Chiron, because I think it looks absolutely evil, but shall we go and get in the warm?
Yeah, let's do that.
Cheers.